let's move on to the next movie, Night School from 1981. There's this maniac on the loose, killing a bunch of chicks, and there's these cops out there trying to find this killer, and good times is had by all. This is a movie I have been wanting to watch for a while, and I've just never kind of been in the mood or gotten around to it. So I did watch this for the first time this past week. I'm a little disappointed in it just because I thought it could have been a little bit better than what it was. I think the slasher aspects of it are fairly... Let's just say the slasher aspects were decent. I think the movie fails a little bit more on the side of interesting characters. Not to say that they're completely dull, but all the different characters in the movie, from the teacher, the detectives, or none of the characters really did anything for me, and I was just waiting for each slasher type scene to occur. I actually really like the costume of the killer. I think it's somewhat unique and, you know, kind of cool to see that character, but outside of those scenes I'm kind of
Yeah, I think by far the most interesting character here was the lesbian schoolmaster. She just sort of cracked me up. Sort of chastising the one professor for sleeping with a student, and then, like 6 scenes later, she's just trying to do the same thing. But I think the main problem with this movie, and I've seen this one twice now, I think the main problem with it is that it's dry. I think the kills are decent. I'm not going to say they're great, but, you know, they're decent. I like the like aquarium scene, you know, locker room attack. I thought that was pretty decent. And there's a pretty suspenseful sequence that takes place in a diner and then outside the diner. I enjoyed that too. But most of the story is sort of like procedural detective work, which has its place, but it just felt dry. It's dry, it's a bit dull, the characters somewhat lifeless. And the mystery it's interesting, I guess, but it's not the most engaging material.
Yeah. I don't know if you felt the same way about this, but anytime that teacher was on the screen, I felt like I was watching like an episode of Frasier without the comedy. Not that Frasier's like the most funniest show on the earth, but I don't know. I felt like I was watching Kelsey Grammer just trying to hook up with chicks.
and you would think that would make it more entertaining.
Yeah. One other thing that I thought was kind of amusing, and I guess this is just coincidence, but they have that one weird guy halfway through the movie that they're kind of interrogating or checking on, and I noticed he had a hockey mask in his room, which, like I said, is a bit of a funny coincidence considering this movie, I think, kind of was made just before Jason started using hockey masks. So just looking at it from, you know, a horror fan seeing a hockey mask and having it, you know, belong to this weird guy, and just before Friday the 13th started using that, yeah, it was kind of amusing.
You know, I'm just thinking, like, as far as, like, I guess the history of the slasher subgenre is concerned, this felt a lot more like, I'm not sure if you've seen, When a Stranger Calls, but in many ways this felt a lot more like When a Stranger Calls than it did Friday the 13th or Halloween. In this case, like, majority of it is more like, I guess, the mystery, the detective work than it is anything else. And, you know, When a Stranger Calls had very strong suspenseful scenes, but quite a bit of the movie, I'm not saying it's not good, but quite a bit of the movie is much in the same sort of dry vein. What do you think about the gist of this one? I know you can't see me, but I was doing a finger quote over tryst because I don't think it was that great.
I mean, the funny thing is, I mean, this was also a first-time watch for my wife as well, and she kind of guessed it already halfway through the movie. Well, not exactly who it was, but she made a pretty good guess. Like, she was saying less than halfway through the movie, I think the killer's a woman, you know. Actually, I should say spoiler alert, actually.
Well,
let me do that again.
To be fair, there are plenty of women in the movie who the killer might be.
Yeah.
Is it the lesbian hard mistress? Is it one of the students with the teacher? Who knows?
Yeah. So she didn't say, "Oh, it's this one," it's this one, but she was kind of on the right track there. For me personally, I actually never even think to like. For me, I never try to solve it before it happens. That's just not how I approach movies. I just literally sit down, I watch it, and because I guess mainly because these type of twists that you have in horror movies, they don't go too many different directions.
Yeah, I'll just say I think post 2000s, I think those horror movies, when they went with plot twists, had a little more, I guess, a slightly more freeform approach that I liked a bit more. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, I mean, there were some interesting ones. I mean, look at Sleepaway Camp. But for the most part, yeah, I don't think the twist necessarily changed much. Right? But it's so interesting, but the ending to this one, again, it just felt, I don't know, I think I mentioned, it just felt lifeless. Like, I mean, people watch the original Friday the 13th, so they watch all these 80s slashers, even Prom Night. I even like Prom Night, but those movies they just feel a bit better than this one does, in my opinion. Which is a shame, because I actually really like the idea, but the way they went with it, it didn't really appeal to me.
Yeah. Slasher movies are probably my favorite subgenre of horror.
It's not vampires?
Hell no. And I think for me, I'm more interested or attracted to the aesthetics of the movie rather than the technical plots and things like that. So, I much prefer the way a movie looks than it actually unfolds, Anyways, I guess the only other point that I had to make, or that I wanted to highlight, was after that one scene where that woman working at the diner, we see what happens to her, and then I guess her boss or the owner or whatever you want to call him, he comes in, sees the place all messed up, and he's also got two guys with him who are hungry. I just thought it was really funny how they were just really on his ass to start making them some food. They're like, "Will you make with the food, Gus?"
That's the American way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, that's the, as soon as they get there, boom, there was some food. I mean, it takes a little time.
I mean, you're dealing with, a potential break-in or something. Something happened, and they're like, "Don't worry about that, just make our food."
And yeah, like I said, I actually think that scene was decently, suspenseful. I like how they sort of drawed it out a bit. I mean, we pretty much knew what he was going to find, but I sort of like the way they did that. So I'm not going to say it's a highlight, but I think it's one of the better scenes in the movie.
Yeah, it started to become, okay, when is he actually going to stumble across this body or whatever he's going to find? Because we see certain scenes where he's like, okay, he's about to find a head in the fridge, and they do that so many different times until he gets to the point where he actually does find something. Yeah. Night School, it was an okay time for me. I was expecting a little bit more from it. I was hoping for it to be at least a 7 out of 10 movie for me, but it ended up being a 6 out of 10 for me. I'll certainly give it another chance many years down the line, but it's certainly not a movie that I'm looking to go back to anytime soon.
Yeah, I think the main problem at Night School is that it just so often, either the characters aren't that engaging or the story is just a bit dry. I mean, I guess I liked the two main detectives. I think they were okay, but there wasn't that much in this movie that I could see myself, thinking, hey, I've got to, watch this again. Like, I enjoy watching Halloween, I enjoy watching Friday the 13th, but I just couldn't imagine throwing this one on for enjoyment after seeing it. Especially after seeing it twice. It's a few decent scenes. And like I said, I do like the hypocritical lesbian school mistress woman. That, again, it just cracks me up. I'm going to concur and give this a 6 out of 10. especially for the time this came out. I mean, if it was like a mid or late 80s, I could understand the star power slasher. But in star power slasher from the early 80s is just really disappointing. So it's okay, but it's not great, and I can sort of see why I don't see that many people talking about it.